Hello, my name is Vinayak, and this is my track called Kaafile Bahaaron Ke, an entire overview of what all went behind making of this song. Everything you see in red are drums and percussion. Everything you see in pink is bass. Everything you see in blue is either keys or piano. A lot of synthesizers. Purple is a string section which is only 1 bar long. Dark green is electric guitar. Light green is acoustic guitar. Shades of oranges are all vocals. Brown are all the effects. Red is our mix bus. Let's start with percussion. Percussion were recorded in Westy 2 drum booth. I used a bunch of mics for it, like C414, overhead mic, a U87 for the room. We recorded a bunch of instruments, sticks on the drum kit. I recorded a lot of percussive instruments like tambourine, gungru, ocean tante. One's my favorite. It's called a storm drum. It sounds like a storm. The shakere, all of this was done in the initial production, which I did in actually Logic. All the takes here after comping look like this. But I also use Logic for binaural stuff, binaural panning. Created these effects through some of the percussive instruments, like this is a shaker, a tambourine, another shaker. Everything except this one little kick sample, everything was actually recorded live. No VST instrument was used except a 1 bar string section. This is the only instance of the VST instrument that was used in the entire project. A lot of miking experimentation went on while recording the drums. You'll often hear a lot of instruments because I recorded around 15 to 20 percussive instruments. The entire idea of this song was to sprinkle a lot of instruments here and then, sort of creating like a sound bar. Experimented throughout this project. I shifted mics here and there, tiny bit, heard what difference it made, what was right for each instrument. There were about 18 takes for the percussive, bounced out the binaural. Moving on to the bass. Bass was primarily recorded on Moog Little Fatty. It sounds like this. I also recorded a Marcus Miller bass borrowed from my flatmate for tiny little sections that were played on the bass guitar, which was actually reamped in the Moog bass as well. Moving on to what's called Bassify. Bassify is an instrument that I made myself for another module that I'm studying called Interface for Design. It looks like this. This max patch is a vocal harmonizer which harmonizes polyphonically different voices. It panned out. For example, if you put a D Dorian, which this song is in, and I play a E, it will automatically play E minor with my harmonies. And when I started this assessment, I really wanted to create some sort of instrument, pay homage to one of my human influences, Robert Moog. This was just the cherry on the top. This was extensively used in the outro section with a lot of automation. This was, I think, a sawtooth preset I made in Bassify. Some stereo delay to it. And moving on to acoustic piano. So when I started this project, I initially recorded a melody and a piano part live on Instagram when the assessment period started on a Kurzweil. And the only Kurzweil stem that made it to the final track was this. Later I tracked it in Basement 2. I took like 8 takes, combed it, chopped it up, combed it up. This was the final thing. There were 2 mics used for this. As you can see, I did not put any EQ on this. And what you hear is just through mic placement. I carefully adjusted each mic to my taste, where I felt it was sounding the best. I used 2 TLM 193 Neumann microphones for it. clips I use for its reverberation in the final thing. I've sidechained it to some elements. I wanted a far away piano just playing throughout the song. I did use one effects on it, and I essentially modulated its mix automation for pretty much everything that goes on in the song. A volume, filters, panning. Used Moog Fatty for some synth parts. Reamped it for an electric guitar sound. Again, the only curse fill. This is the only thing that made to the final thing from the demo. A small piano section. I also recorded the Nod rack from Vestry 2 for soundscape elements between silences, and they come out like this. There are many instances of it. This is a small little string section that I made. This was the only programmed thing in the entire project. I used it using Spitfire. Moving on to the electric guitars, double track and quad track for some of the parts. Created a clean tone for it, but I did reamp it in this section. Put acoustic guitars in the final part of first half. There's a lot of vocal layering that I did. I recorded most of it through a TLM 193, which was my favorite mic in this entire project. Stood far away in different parts of the room to give it more of a choral vibe, and that's why this sounds big. And moving on to my lead vocals, as you can see, everything is automated. Lead vocals. A very fun fact, I actually printed a few items through the Neve console, through the retro or the modern. I printed the string section through the retro output. I call this session Vestry 1 Shenanigans. Take the string section and I put it through the retro output of Neve console. I center panned it because I wanted the retro sound to come from the middle. I even took the lead vocals, EQ'd it a little, and that's why you might hear a lot of change in the sound. And I put it through the modern mix, modern output of Neve console. Modern, dry. Since I EQ'd it sounds too drastic. Also printed the final outro section, which was through the modern output, and just center panned it. I also EQ'd it a little for all of these stems through the Neve console. Moving on to the effects, all the effects that were used. As you can see, all of these are units that were printed through analog gear. I've automated them a lot, all of them, whether it's reverb or reamping. I've also used a couple of instances of plugin reverbs as well. Name some of the reverbs like Amaze because they sound amazing. I call some of them best because they sound the best. There's Eclipse, there's Distressor, Angle Amp, an instance of Neural DSP plugin for the reverb. It has this beautiful shimmer reverb. Going on to the final section of the song, took this song, really cut it into a lot of small little parts. Tried to invert the chord progression, and added effects through it, modulation through it, some delays to it. Since the initial part of the song goes from a D minor, F major, G major, and it sounds like a little going towards the brighter sides of the Dorian, I inverted the chords in a sense that it would become a little more darker because the last part of the song goes with a sense of sorrow, alcoholism. So I wanted to create that darkness for it, so I shifted the entire progression. And I carefully cut all the parts, muted some parts, created a final section which sounds like this. This was done in free tempo, there was no specific tempo for it. But all the effects that were used were mapped to 97 BPM in an ambient way, in a very free tempo way. And I recorded further backing vocals for the final verse. And this is actually my instrument Bassify that I've used extensively in this section. Final thing that I did, I really like the sound of the slowing down effect from Logic, so I bounced out my entire file in Pro Tools, put it in Logic, and create this small little slowing down getting back up section which sounds like this. Logic for the small little transition, bounced it again, the final little mastering. This is a mastering session that I did, essentially split the files into mid and side, and I put 0.2, 0.3 dBs of just to bring out the loudness, because I think my initial mix was too soft. It was around -90, brought it up to like -15, -14. I used a Better Maker, a Purple Audio for mid-side processing, and this Shadow Hills compressor. I've just added some gain through it, and it's not even doing any sort of compression. It's less than a 0.5 dB. I quite like the color of this plugin, so I used it, slightly boost up the gain of the song, and there's the difference between the mix. You decide what would you like better, the mix or the master. I'm gonna upload both of them. This was my song, a small number of 259 tracks. Let me know how you feel about it. Thank you for watching.